south on local logic, good, I was runway 25, separate. Stockholm 9914, double 13, double 757, calling for turbulence, maintain 2 front, Jonas, Brennan.
Ready, 455.
1 Eastern onboard, clear into traffic, you should be at the next can, stop to follow you, towers 1 for 3, 1 out, thanks for your help, we're good.
Hey everybody, from AirDailyX.net, I am DeAndre, and I am super excited. I am finally, the holy grail of rudder pedals, the MFG Crosswinds, have arrived. In fact, they arrived over a week and a half ago, and they've been sitting under the Christmas tree, and I've had to negotiate with the wife in order to get them opened a little bit early so that we can take a look at just exactly is all the hype about these just super awesome rudder pedals. Now, as a reviewer, one of the things that I typically look for in a review is I don't typically judge them based on what people like about a product. I typically judge them based on what people did not like. So it's a combination of that and whether or not people found that the product really represented what the manufacturer said it would do. So what I've been trying to do, and there are heaps of videos all over YouTube and a lot of famous people in the community, Jordan King and Frugal and others have done their own reviews of this thing, and I cannot find one single negative thing that anyone has had to say. Everyone says it's the best quality workmanship, the price is super affordable, very sturdy, very well crafted. So I am just stoked to finally have an opportunity to see for myself, do these things really live up to all the hype? And of course, you all are welcome to come along with me. So the box is here. We're gonna open this bad boy up. Now granted, the box is not super pretty that you would probably get with your Scitek pedals, but it is very small. It is packed very durably on the inside, and let's open this thing up and see what we have. So, I've got my trusty knife here, and we're going to be very careful to make sure that we do not damage anything while opening the box. So I'm just going to cut right along the sides with the lovely kitchen knife. Shouldn't go toward my hand, because that's a good way to cut myself. And this bad boy, the shipping was actually very quick. From the moment that he said he shipped the item out, it only took about roughly a week, and this was coming from, I believe, Croatia, if I'm not mistaken. And it arrived impeccably right on time, and I thought it would be a long wait because obviously one of the things that he wants to do is try to keep the price as low as possible, especially with the shipping. So everything is very tightly packed based on a lot of videos that I've seen already. Let's see, let's open up the other side here as well. So my thought process was, you know, in order to keep the shipping price super cheap, it would probably take like, you know, half a decade for it to arrive. And fortunately, it did not take very long at all. So I was very happy about that. Let's open up along the side here as well. And there's a lot of please handle with care. And you have to be really careful, especially using a knife opening up along the sides, because packed along the sides of the case, inside the styrofoam, is a few of the parts, and so we want to make sure we don't take out any of the parts while we do that. And here she comes. Really excited about this. Alright. As they say in Star Wars, almost there. And there we are. The box goes away. Right at the top, we are met with a little note with my name on it. And it says, I hope you will enjoy my fine custom-made rudder pedals. Please watch my YouTube videos on my channel to see how to assemble, adjust, and calibrate the pedals. Your pedals will ship with new firmware for new electronics. These are important to know. Do not use Windows calibration at all. Calibrate pedals by using the MFG Configurator version 2 software. There is an appropriate start button for each axis. I have calibrated the pedals and factory at pedal angle of 20 degrees. If you need to change the angle of the pedals, you will not see the movement before the brakes in the windows. Don't panic. You need to calibrate the brakes using the MFG Configurator tool. This is because by doing calibration, we tell the electronics what the view angle is of the sensor in order to get the proper reading from it. This is the best explanation without technical expressions. At the moment, the user manual is not finished for new software. However, I have included a manual for the older configurator tool. While the interface has changed a little, features are the same, at least the ones you need. Don't use digital sensor adjustments at the moment until I explain it. You will find the software package, of course, at his website, and he is located in Dikmo, Croatia. So these bad boys have come a very, very long way in a very short period of time. Okay, so just taking a quick look at the packaging before we rip anything open. As you can see, it is very, very densely packed. If we rotate just a little bit here, you can see here, as I mentioned earlier, some of the parts here are included on the sides, which is why you want to be careful when you're coming at it with that knife on the sides not to scratch anything. And let's see here, let's rotate it around this way. And you'll notice we have more parts here on the sides as well. And this one fell out. This is the USB plug. And let's rotate it upside down. Take this piece away. And now we get a very good look at the craftsmanship. And let me just feel this. That feels very, very strong. Very, very sturdy. I mean, that just feels very strong. This is not your typical Scitek plastic, and to be honest, for only a little more than $100 over the Scitek rudder pedals, I mean, you just can't beat this for the price. It feels very smooth. All the curves, all the surfaces are very smooth, and it feels expensive. It feels very expensive. I mean, it seems like something like this with this type of workmanship should be far more than it is. And just a little bit of a brief history about the developer. This is his home business. He has two websites, one of which centers around the rudder pedals that he's developing. The other is his furniture business. He is a furniture manufacturer. He creates custom furniture, and as many of us in our many various fields, flight simulation happens to be a huge hobby for him. So he decided, you know what, no one is developing a good pair of rudder pedals. I'm going to do it myself. And when you have that type of skill that he has, obviously the results are going to come out really well, which they obviously have. So let's take a quick look here. Let's see, we need to make some indentations to remove this. I'm going to cut right along here. Now, I did go in and see his initial unboxing, and unfortunately, the packaging that he uses in his video, I'm already seeing, is a little bit different than what we have here, so it's not exactly the same. I wanted to try to emulate his unboxing as closely as possible, but now that I see that mine's a little bit different than that one, I'm gonna have to do things a little bit differently. Let me just double check here. Yeah, so it looks like this packaging here is just a little bit different, based on what I can see. And this thing is basically strapped together like Legos. So I'm gonna cut along the indentations that I already see here. I think that's the best way to go. And I'm gonna cut along here. There we go. I guess as long as we follow some of these little indentations, we should be fine. Go. Be careful not to cut any of the wires, because if I damage this thing, repair is not going to be a simple matter of returning to the local Fry's or Best Buy. And the waiting list for these, You're not gonna get it overnight, unfortunately. There is a huge waiting list, and as a matter of fact, I spoke with him briefly a few days ago, and according to him, he's got orders just, I mean, he's working non-stop every day for several months. He'll be working to fill all of his orders, and it's not that he's behind on orders, it's that there are so many people ordering this thing that it's just really a matter of keeping up with everyone who wants one. So the way he conducts his business is you can go in and order a pair right now, and as a matter of fact, I would recommend you order your pair right now. Order them now, because even if you don't have the money to get them now and your thought is, well, let me just save up the money, you can order them now. He's only going to charge you once he's ready to ship. So if you feel like, okay, I don't have the money now, but I'll have it next month, then you can go ahead and put your order in now, because by the time he says, okay, your rudder pedals are ready, and he sends you the invoice, by then you should have the 300. Now these ones I paid $375, and there were, if I remember correctly, a couple of tiers on the website for additional pieces and parts and stuff like that, and so I just ordered the carte blanche, just throw it all in there. So the full price, including shipping and everything, was about $375 US. And just already looking at these compared to the Scitek's, I mean, we're comparing Hyundais and BMWs pretty much at that point. All right, let's slide this right out very carefully. There we go. And we have our pieces here. Actually, this now is a good time to pull some of these out. These things are jammed in here very tightly. Custom specific styrofoam pieces, as I like to say. That's a shout out to some of the people who made fun of my last unboxing. Let's see here. I'm just going to cut along some of these indentations as well, just so I can get in here and push that last piece out with my finger, if I can. There we go. All right, and then let's move along this side here. It's heavy too, just lifting this up here. It's actually quite heavy. I mean, it's heavier than it looks, but not as heavy as you might think. And let's take the toe pedals on out and just give you a little bit of a close-up there. This is very sturdy craftsmanship. I mean, I couldn't bend this if I wanted to. That's just how strong that is. This is hardcore. This is hardcore. I mean, look at that. If this were plastic like the Scitek's, I bend it enough, you're gonna get some bending out of it, but this is really solid. I mean, seriously solid. Wow, when I was a kid, I could have gotten my butt whipped with one of these. Okay, and let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other things that are in here. There we go, some more of the parts. And let's see, and then we have some more parts here. Now, I'm not going to go through the process of actually putting it together, because my very good friend Jordan King has already done that for us. So, just taking a quick look here up close, there's one more toe pedal we need to take out of there, and just kind of give you an idea, just sort of up close, of this workmanship here. I mean, very solid. Look at, and the movement is so smooth. Just moving this around, that's a very smooth movement. And so supposedly these are really custom. They're able to be customized to the user's preference in terms of how much tension or how little that you want to operate these pedals. So I'm going to go ahead, start putting mine together, and stick around. We're going to watch Jordan's video. That way you can get the full idea of putting it together from scratch, because there's no point in me redoing anything he already did with his super professional fancy cameras and all this stuff. I mean, I'm just some guy living out of a shack compared to Jordan. So watch Jordan's video. He's going to show you how to put it all together, and then I'll come back. They'll already be hooked up and ready to fly, and then we'll see just how good these bad boys are. I'm excited. I'll see you guys in a few minutes. Yes. Dun, 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 dun. I'm a copy Jordan's video.
In the flight simulation community, there's very few accessories and peripherals that truly make me say, wow. Well, what you'll be looking at today definitely.
How fancy his video is.
I'd like to share with you guys my experience with the Crosswinds by MFG.
By MFG. We're sitting here like just mixing this music with two turntables right here. Let's see how good Jordan got it. We're gonna follow his step by step. So the cool thing with this is you have these 4 holes that run along the side here, and you have an option. If you want your toe brake to be closer to the unit itself, then you would put your screws here on the outside. If you're more of a helicopter pilot, or if you fly jets and you usually have your flight stick kind of in between your legs, you can elect to have this a little bit further out and have that extra space in between your legs, especially if you have something there in the middle. So in his video, he's gone for the inside, and I think I'll do the opposite. I think I'll go for the outside. And additionally, you see you have these 4 screws here, so you can have it where the pedal is closer to you, or you can move it upward and have it a little bit further away from you. So let's see. I imagine if you have long legs and you have a desk, your knees can have it can essentially hit the desk the further it is close to you, because the more your legs are bent. So the little bit further out the pedal is, the little bit more your legs can be stretched out, because you can see in my particular case, I really don't have that much space between my seating position and the wall. So I think I'll elect to go a little bit further out. And the great thing about these pedals, unlike the Scitek pedals, or pretty much essentially any other pedals that are out there on the market, is you have these options to adjust it the way you want them to be. So it's not just a one-size-fits-all scenario where you absolutely have to go with that one particular size, and that's really the only option you have. Now in this case, I've used the wrong ones, and even here you have this these wider pieces here toward the top. If you want to have your legs a little bit, or your feet a little bit out at an angle, or a little, or further in, or exactly straight. I mean, again, that's just one option of the amount of customization that you can have based on your seating position, based on the type of feet you have, whatever the case is. So in this case, we're just going to keep it straight. We're going to put these nuts here on the back end. Great thing about this is that indeed, you personally could go to Home Depot and customize your own rudder pedals. That's what makes this thing so great. I've seen a lot of people out there. I'm going to need to get my pliers here on this one, because I can't tighten the nut. I need something that's going to hold that nut there on the other end, so I'll probably have to have my pliers hold that in place, but that's straight enough for now. But you could essentially go to Home Depot and create anything you want to attach to this, because it is so customizable. All the pieces to screw and unscrew are visible. You can go in and essentially Frankenstein this thing out if you wanted to, and that also is one of the great things about this, is you can really make it yours. You can say, okay, the initial design is great, perfect craftsmanship. I want a toe brake that's a little bit wider, or a little bit narrower, a little bit skinnier. And if you have the ability to go in and create your own stuff, you can essentially use anything you want really on this. It's really, I'm not saying I'm encouraging you to do that, but you have that option to do it. You can really make your own parts, or again, wait for Milan to take the time. Once he finalizes and gets all these orders out, you can essentially go in and create your own parts, and that to me is one of the great things about this. All right, now what I want to do now at this point is give you a very accurate idea in terms of what you can expect between the differences of the Scitek rudder pedals and the MFG Crosswinds. So you can see size-wise, they're almost the same size. The Scitek's are a bit skinnier. They're a lot lighter. The Scitek's are a lot lighter than the Crosswinds, that's for sure. You can see the typical plastic construction. There is no option to move your pedals more inward or more outward. This is pretty much it. You have this little tension wheel, which mine's is broken. Mine's broke a long time ago, this tension wheel. It just doesn't work anymore. One day I was tightening it. I was flying one day, and then I just heard a snap, and that was it. It was done. You do get a little bit of, you get a little bit of customization with the Scitek. Other than these 3 little steps here, that's pretty much it. That's all you have. So you can already see a huge difference in terms of what the $200 range will get you versus having an extra $160, $170, what this gets you in this particular case. So as you can see here, it's a big difference. Now, what I was trying to show before is the tension, which is what I was talking about. Now, there is not a lot of range of motion with the toe brakes and the Scitek. That's it. You get about roughly maybe an inch worth of movement, if that. I don't even think that's a full inch of movement, but that's it. And that's all you get. Now, with the MFGs, you get a much wider range of motion. So you're getting almost 2 inches, really, either whether it's 2 inches or not, but it's about twice as much range as you get from the Scitek. And again, as opposed to the Scitek, which I'll put up here, and I'll put it up on the desk here. So it's a huge, huge difference in terms of what's controlling these. Another thing that I like about these, about the Crosswinds, is you can see the workmanship. In the case of the Scitek and most, oh look, there goes my little thing there. See, it's already breaking off. Again, not to beat up on Scitek, because these rudder pedals have really gotten me out of a jam. I mean, when I first got my Thrustmaster Warthog, which was like the month it first came out, I was always used to using twist joysticks. I was not using rudder pedals because they were all just too expensive, and I was reluctant to get the Scitek because I just didn't want to add the plastic to my life. But they were great. I could run out right away, bought them the same day, and I had working rudder pedals, which was great. And these things have got me out of a jam. Since these, I had the Redbird RD1 professional level flight simulator pedals. I went through 2 sets of those, and I sent them both back. The quality was great, all solid metal construction, but the quality of them just wasn't good. They had a lot of issues interfacing with the flight simulator, and in the end, I had to let them go. So when I was in need of rudder pedals, these old trusty Scitek were still in the closet, and they saved my life. So, and I will still keep them because you just never know when these things might have to come in handy. So not to beat up on Scitek, but to just show you the difference of adding just a little bit of extra money to your budget and the differences you can get that will enhance your life and your experiences with Flight Simulator, or really any other type of game you play. You really see the huge difference that a marginal amount gets you with this type of construction, all handmade, European. I mean, you really just can't beat this for the price. And what I love is you can see what it's doing. With the Scitek ones there, it's all encased in plastic. You know, there's a circuit board in there somewhere. You don't see the workmanship. You don't really get to see what's on the inside. Here, everything is on the outside. Everything here is clearly exposed. You can see the workmanship. You know exactly what you're getting. You don't have to get a screwdriver and crack it open to see what you have. A good friend of mine, baseball pilot, just broke his rudder pedals, his Scitek rudder pedals. He was flying and he was taxiing the aircraft, heard a snap. He opened it up and saw that there was just a small plastic piece that was holding the spring together, which was basically this piece here, or the similar piece in the Scitek. And it wasn't the spring that broke, it was the plastic that holds it all together. The plastic just wore and it snapped.
All right, here it is. I epoxied the hell out of it. Hopefully it works. Got the little paper clip in there for support for now. check again in 24 hours.
In this case, you don't have to open it up to see, what's on the inside. I mean, it's all out right in front of you. You know what it's doing. You know what's there. And it looks beautiful. It actually has sort of like an artsy craftsmanship to it. Anyone that walks into your house and sees these things underneath your desk is gonna ask questions. Wow, what is that? And they really do stand out. They stand out incredibly, and they're solid and very well made. I mean, it's unbelievable. It really is. And I've seen a lot of people on various websites that I browse where they've created their own rudder pedals because they just got sick of the Scitek, but they don't also want to spend $800, $900, $1,500 on a pair of enthusiast rudder pedals. So I've seen a lot of people go in and they've built them on their own. And I've seen some of these rudder pedals and I've been jealous, like, oh my God, you should mass produce things. And they're like, nope, we're not going to mass produce them. This fits me and I'm only doing mine. Here are the instructions. Here's the parts to do it. Go make your own. And I'm just like, screw that. I'll just, hook up the Scitek. But this particular gentleman, Milan, he created his own. He created his initial prototype and just continued to build on and build on and build on. And that's what he's doing now. He's continuing to build on this. So a year from now, this whole set might be far more expanded than it already is. But nevertheless, I mean, you see the craftsmanship. You can see all the parts. There are so many different customizable levels. I mean, to be honest, at this point, I am happy to have these over a pair of $1,500 rudder pedals because $1,500 rudder pedals will give you an accurate Piper or an accurate Cessna or an accurate 737 rudder pedal, but that's all you're really going to get. It's not going to be customizable, and it's really going to be really specific to that aircraft. So if you're flying your C-172 and you've got 737 rudder pedals down there, you're not going to really get the same feel. Whereas with these, you can kind of customize these to each aircraft. So if I decide, okay, I want to fly a helicopter, I might want to adjust my pedals a bit. I'll switch over to the C-172 or whatever else. I can adjust these to whatever aircraft that I like. And I think really the biggest thing that you're going to get from these rudder pedals is the customization. You can do literally almost anything you want with this. And then if that's still not enough, you can then take it far beyond and create your own parts or buy little parts and drill holes into your own, parts to line up with the holes and everything that's here, because you've got all these holes in these parts. And in the end, if you find, there's not enough holes here, I want it to go further up. You can go to Home Depot, buy a small piece of plywood, drill 5, 6, 7 holes, and then still line up these pedals. So it's literally endless. The amount of customizations you can do with this. You can do almost anything with this. And that's what makes these so incredibly special. So when we very first started, you can see here, this little spring here is on this outer. You've got 2 rings here. So on the outer ring, let me just get a feel of what this feels like on the outer ring. You've got some really good pressure. And again, comparing this to the Scitek, you have far more range of travel for your rudder pedals. The Scitek's can only go so far. These go a lot further, so you get more travel. Let's go ahead and loosen this, and let's move it to the inner one and see if that gives us more tension or less tension. Let's see here. So now we're on the inner, and now we're going to tighten this. And again, depending on how much tension you want, just moving this over here, can also depend on how far you want to tighten this. So the tighter it is, the more difficult and the more hydraulic replicated pressure you're going to feel. So I'm just going to tighten this bad boy up and try to pull as much tension out of it as I can. Let's see. Oh, wow, look at that. This is awesome. I'm in love with these pedals. This is great, and I still have so much more tension that I can add. I've got a lot more tension I can add to this thing. Let's keep going. Let's stretch this bad boy. Look at this now. Let's see now. Oh, wow, look at that. So you can really test, and I mean, look at the way the pieces move as I push them. Look at the way all the pieces move. I mean, like I said, you can see it working. There's nothing hidden about this. I mean, look at the way the roller rolls here along the pieces here. I mean, there's nothing hidden about it. You can see everything that it's doing, and Again, the customization levels are endless. I can tighten this even more, but I'm going to hold off on that because when we get to the part of this really long-ass video, when I get into actually flying the aircraft, then I can go in and do some customizations that way. Now, as I begin the process of getting the rudder pedals finally hooked up to the computer system, there was one interesting thing that I noticed with the pedals that sort of tipped me off a little bit, and I'll show you. Basically, even though you have the pedals up against the wall, which we'll do here, and please don't mind all my wires. If we come in here, the good thing about these extensions here is if you have cords and stuff and cables running along the walls, they're elevated above them. So you don't have to worry about anything kind of getting in the way of them. Cables can run above or below them. Obviously, I need to clean up this area underneath my desk. But one of the things that I noticed that's kind of an issue, and this is both a good thing and a bad thing with these pedals, is that when I rest my feet on the pedals, let's say I take one foot off, I take the left foot off, I leave the right foot on, the pedals have a tendency to tip. And I noticed that with the weight of my foot. And the reason why they do that is because in front of the pedals, you have this nice little sort of arcing area here, which gives the pedal some balance. But in the back, that doesn't exist. And that's actually what these pedals are missing, is you need that same sort of balance that you have in the front that hold them down in the back as well. Otherwise, when you put your foot on them, they will tend to tip like this. So one of the plans I'm going to do, and this is why I say it's also a good thing, is because I can create something to stabilize the pedals. Because these pedals are so incredibly customizable, all I have to do is take a piece of wood, drill a couple of holes in it, and this piece of wood in the front will balance. Because once that's glued in, the sides from both sides of the wood will stop that from happening. Now, that may or may not be convenient for your particular setup, and you might have to come up with your own sort of technique to find a way to get that to work. But for me, in my particular case, this will work. And the wood can still be used to go up against the wall, or it can be cut. But either way, it's not that big of a deal. And because the pedals, again, are so customizable, there's still an easy fix for me to combat that sort of tipping that I got when resting one of my legs on the pedals. Alright, so after some initial trial and error of trying to come up with a way to perfectly balance out these pedals, and a little bit of scavenging around the house trying to find spare parts, I finally come up with a design that works perfect in order to keep the pedals perfectly stable, but also it assists in ensuring that they do not move while in operation. Now, one of the things that I've done here is I've taken 2 pieces of black wood. This is basically something that came from a foosball table that I bought a year ago. We use the foosball table on our coffee table, so we really didn't need these little stands that it came with. So I was able to pull these out, had a bunch of screws and bolts in my toolbox, and sort of put everything together in about roughly half an hour, drilling some holes in the wood and then using the pre-existing holes at the bottom of the rudder pedals to go through the wood. Now, as you can see here at the bottom, some of these bolts are a little bit too big. Again, this is stuff that I found around the house, so they go in a little bit too far through the wood. But another thing you're going to notice here are carpet spikes. Now, these carpet spikes came from a bunch of old speaker stands that I had in the past that I no longer use. And the great thing about speakers, or about carpet spikes, is that they are very, very stable and handling loads on a carpet. They ensure that nothing moves. Now, I can push and pull this thing quite a bit using a lot of force just with my hand here, and it barely moves, and in some cases it doesn't move at all. In fact, it will lift off the carpet before actually moving forward on the carpet. So this is a great alternative for some of you that have desks that are not directly up against the wall and they're more centered underneath your desk. This is one thing that you can use to ensure that your rudder pedals will stay perfectly still while using the full range of motion. And again, given the fact that these pedals are really, really stiff, that will also assist in that. Another thing I've done was added a little USB light strip, which kind of makes the whole thing look a little bit more cool underneath the desk. I found this particular strip online at Amazon for about $15. It comes with a cool little remote that comes with a bunch of little multi-functions like Christmas lights. You can change the colors, you can change the intensity of the colors, and the lights are more or less hidden underneath the wood and gives it a nice little ambient glow underneath your desk. And like I said, I think it's something that just looks really, really cool. So essentially this is intended to be sort of a temporary fix until I come up with a more permanent solution, but essentially it's working so incredibly well that I think I'll just keep it this way. One thing that would have been better was to use one solid piece of wood instead of two separate pieces of wood. That would have definitely made it a little bit more stable instead of two pieces. But as you can see, I have the bolts drilled into both pieces of wood, so no worries. Different types of bolts. I've sort of Frankensteined my pedals out just a little bit. I can certainly go to Home Depot, get better parts, and do a better job, which is something that I may certainly do at some point down the line. But at least for now, it all works completely perfect. It never moves, and they look so good. Move on to the next part of the video where we actually go into the simulator and see these things working in real time. One of the things I wanted to show you in an effort to be as thorough as possible with this product and in this review is I wanted to show you the benefits of using carpet spikes. Now many of you, like I said, are going to have to probably wind up using some sort of wooden surface or something to bolt the rudder pedals onto in order to give it that maximum stability and balance. So if you do wind up going with putting that piece of plywood underneath the rudder pedals, I really want to encourage you to go out and find those carpet spikes. I just spoke about them a minute ago, but I wanted to show you in this particular case, we have the rudder pedals where they are completely free. They are not up against the wall surface. And this really is for people who are not able to put their rudder pedals up against a wall. You're probably going to be wondering, how can we do that? Now, naturally, you can probably build parts like this that are much longer and might extend all the way to the nearest wall. But a lot of people might have their desks in the center of a room, for example. So this really only works if you're on carpet. But again, utilizing the carpet spikes and just showing you just how stable carpet spikes are. I positioned the rudder pedals away from any nearest wall. I'm going to put my feet here on the pedals. As you can see, resting one foot now, putting a lot of pressure on it. They no longer tip. This is a second foot here on. And now using the stiffest, and again, you can tell how stiff my pedals are because of how far this piece comes out. So now that we know that this is as stiff as it gets, we're using number 6, which is the stiffest as well. You can see here by utilizing the pedals, it doesn't move at all. So that's the great thing. You have your toe brakes. Toe brakes use a little bit might force the unit to come up a little bit. Being up against the wall definitely gives it a little bit more stability because you're pushing the weight forward. This is why I would recommend you using a longer piece of plywood that goes much further forward. That way it won't tip forward. But the best thing about the carpet spikes is no matter how hard, and I mean I can really try to just push this thing. You can hear it. I'm really forcing it now. And it is not moving. So if you are on a surface nowhere near a wall, definitely go the route with using a big piece of plywood and getting carpet spikes. I don't know where you can get carpet spikes from, but I'm sure you could probably find some of them on Amazon or something like that. But this is a perfect way to keep your pedals centered and not up against a wall surface, which is something that, technically speaking, I no longer need. So just another example for you in terms of giving you an idea of how you can make your experience as good as possible. Let's go ahead and move into the simulator now. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the lightning round. This is the part where we finally get to see just how well these rudder pedals work in real time. So you can see here I've set up a couple of camera views here. Should give you a little bit of an idea of working all the controls together, and should help you kind of dream about what it's going to be like until you get, of course, your own version of the MFG Crosswinds. Absolutely, they are amazing, but of course we never really know that for sure until we are actually on board and checking them out in real time. So you should have the
rudder pedals there on the right side of your screen along with the other controls, and let's go ahead and take a look at what these babies feel like. So after quite a bit of trial and error in terms of trying to decide what is the best fit position for the rudder pedals, I finally come up with something that's most comfortable for my feet, allows enough clearance, of course, from the top of my desk, and of course, as far as the movement and the feeling of the pedals, I have something that is really just perfect for how stiff I want my rudder pedals to be. And so you can kind of see that a little bit. I'm still kind of hitting my desk just a little bit with my knees, and that's because with the board that I used along with my carpet spikes, it has raised the pedals up a little bit more. So one of the things I'll have to do to kind of adjust for that is either moving my chair backward or maybe moving the pedals upward a little bit more. But so far, this is the most comfortable I've been able to come up with. So I've decided we're going to do a couple of things here. We're going to try some maneuvers in a helicopter and some maneuvers in a typical fixed-wing aircraft, which should give us a little bit of an idea in terms of flying the two. There's a lot of helicopter pilots out there, and of course a lot of fixed-wing aircraft pilots that are probably both really curious about how well this helicopter, or rather these rudder pedals, are going to handle with both. So we're just going to hover just above our helipad here, and we're just going to swing the helicopter around a little bit. And I have the rudder pedals again set to their stiffest setting, but even given that, the movement is very, very fluid. My sensitivity settings within FSUI PC is set to the curve that is most sensitive, so it doesn't require much input at all from me to get a good quick response from the aircraft. But that said, even though there isn't much input that I need to do, if I encounter a scenario such as an engine failure or something like that, the further I go, and I'm going to go ahead and push these a little bit further, the further I go, the harder it is to kind of keep the rudder pedals in that action, just spinning the helicopter around here. So that's the great thing about these pedals. If you're in an aircraft and you have an engine failure, let's say your right engine goes out and then all of a sudden you're on full left rudder, the longer you have to hold that position with these pedals at my specific setting, the more difficult it's going to be on your legs. I thought I put my gear up, but I think I hit the wrong button. There we go. And I'm just going to switch views here really quickly to the tower view. So you can see our helicopter up there. I'm just going to swing us around here, and again, you get an opportunity to see this in real time, getting an idea of what the pedals feel like. Now the pedals don't exactly feel like you're pushing hydraulics. They really feel like what I imagine fly-by-wire would feel like. Because with fly-by-wire, you're not directly pushing the hydraulics, you're pushing the electronics that then go in and communicate that information to the hydraulics. But the pilots still need some significant feeling in those pedals. You do need a significant amount of resistance in order to be able to get a feeling. In other words, if something goes wrong with the actual hydraulics, you should still be able to feel that feedback in the pedals themselves. And so in this case, that's kind of sort of what it feels like, is what I believe fly-by-wire feels like. Hydraulic pedals would still be a bit stiffer. And the good thing with these rudder pedals is you can still achieve that. You won't be able to achieve that right out of the box, but that spring is interchangeable. So you can go to your local hardware store and get a spring that's 10 times as stiff, where just to move the pedals maybe an inch, would require a significant amount of muscle in your legs to get that going. So you can still find a way to make that happen. But otherwise, I have a good degree of stiffness coming out of my pedals. But aside from that, what's also really good is that the pedals feel very fluid. The feeling of the pedals are very smooth, almost as if your feet are on air, essentially. It's a very smooth movement. There's no center dead zone where you have to concern yourself with, running out of movement in the middle. It's just very, very smooth. And again, there are 3 different hardware settings depending on which versions you buy with the pedals that will allow you to experience all of the different stiffness and movement that you can have. So with one of the heads that I kind of have currently equipped on my pedals, this is the stiffest. So when you get to the middle, you can see there, it does want to snap back a bit. So if you want something that's a bit smoother in between, you do have that option by just changing out one of the parts. But again, it's going to depend on which version you purchased. So just as I fool around with our little helicopter here and getting a feel of the pedals, getting a feel of the movement, one of the great things about these pedals over the Scitek's, which of course is what I had previously, is that I have far more range of movement. So with the Scitek's, I can get about this far, and that's about it. But with these, I can go so much further, and that's what makes these pedals so great, is I can go so much further and get so much movement. When it comes to interface devices in Flight Simulator, of course, everything in Simulator is not real. It's digital. It's the Matrix. This world does not actually exist. But the means of which we interact with this virtual world, of course, is our peripherals, our interface devices. And so it's important that the devices we use are as realistic as the digital aircraft that we use in our little environment. So in the case with these rudder pedals, I mean, this is, I think, as good as it'll ever get for an enthusiast. And the reason why I say that is because this is something that's really designed for flight simulation and, to a certain extent for gaming. But this is perfect for something that you can use in your home. Now, granted, you can go out and buy a pair of, replica Cessna or Piper rudder pedals, and of course, you'd have a great time with those. But if you tend to switch back and forth between a lot of different aircraft on a regular basis, then one of the things that you're going to have to keep in mind is that you're now flying a 737 with Cessna rudder pedals. So in the case with the Crosswinds are really flight simulator rudder pedals. So they are a very good all-around pedal for flying jets, for flying helicopters, for flying turboprops, for flying commercial aircraft. They really do find the perfect sort of middle ground for all of them. Now again, looking at the pedals, another one of the great things about it, and I did mention this on earlier in the video, is that you can create your own pedals to work with these. I do know that Milan intends on creating different types of pedals for the rudder so that you can interchange them out. So at some point maybe he'll come out with a Boeing pedal or an Airbus pedal, or maybe an Embraer pedal. So or if at least not exact replicas, then maybe things that are similar. But again, if you can't wait for him to do that and you're very good with materials, you can go in and create those things yourselves. And all you really need to make sure you do is make sure that you drill the holes in the right place so that they fit where they're supposed to fit. And that's really it. And again, that's what makes these pedals so great. So instead of spending $1,000 on a set of rudder pedals that is uniquely specific to a certain aircraft, you can have these pedals, which is something that is, can be really unique to any type of aircraft. Now, if you do own a Cessna 172 and you're using Cessna 172 pedals, then maybe in that case, you might want to stick with that because that's the aircraft you fly in real life, and you need to keep that as specific to that aircraft as possible. But if you're a flight simulation enthusiast, then this is something that really just finds the best for all worlds. just maneuvering the helicopter here, I am just really impressed with how fluid the movement is. It's very stiff, but it's very, very smooth. You don't feel any tension. You don't feel any roughness with it. It's really effortless, with the exception of the fact that it's so stiff that I have to do some muscle work, which is great because, again, you get that much more realistic feeling of what it takes to maneuver an actual aircraft. It's a lot of fun when it comes to taxiing around the airport, and when you first get them, that's what I'd recommend you do first, is just use them to taxi your aircraft around the airport. That's where you're going to really find most of the movement, keeping the aircraft on the center line, working on your turns, so on and so forth. And if you're used to those Scitek's, you're going to find that doing just simple ground maneuvers was very easy with the Scitek's, but you're going to find that it's going to be a bit more challenging with these rudder pedals if you choose a stiffer, more realistic setting. Now, if you want to go with something that's very, soft and smooth and doesn't require much effort at all in your legs to get going, then of course you do have that option. So again, you have something that is perfect for everyone. But as far as the way these things feel, I went through 2 sets of the Redbird RD1 professional rudder pedals, and I can tell you that these feel much better. And the Redbirds are roughly in the $550 range. So those pedals are much more expensive, made out of solid metal. But in this case, these pedals are far, far less cost-wise, and yet they actually feel better. And if you get them, you're going to love them. I can compare these rudder pedals to $1,000 rudder pedals, and I can tell you that as far as the difference in how they feel, I would prefer just to have these. The feeling is just about the same in terms of how stiff you can get it. The only difference, of course, is the foot position. But again, that's what makes these better, is that you don't have to worry about dealing with a fixed foot position. You can change these around for whatever aircraft you choose to fly, and that's what makes these things so great. Maneuvering the helicopter around, I find that my skill is so much better now than it was with the Scitek's. Because it is so stiff, I'm not as likely to overstress or over push the aircraft's limits, because as I move the rudder, the tighter it gets, so the less likely I am to just shove it all the way to the end and get more movement than what I really want. Keeping the aircraft in control also is much easier, because again, you have that greater stiffness with these rudder pedals. So because it's stiffer, it's easier, at least in my opinion, to keep the aircraft in control. And I find that these pedals are just so much more fun to use as well. So these are our little helicopter maneuvers here. Hopefully this gives you a little bit of an idea in terms of what it's like to operate your helicopter. And there you can see there on your screen the rudder pedals in the virtual cockpit versus the rudder pedals on the right. Very, very smooth movements. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and put our helicopter down. And the next step is we're going to switch into a fixed wing, add in some crosswinds, and let's see how the crosswinds handle in the crosswinds. Let's just find that little helipad there. Easy does it. Just small, easy movements. I do have a little bit of wind here, but nothing I can't handle. Yikes. One of the problems with Prepared and FSX are the eye points. Sometimes the helicopter or the aircraft looks like it's in a certain place, and then you find out it's not. Let's switch into the fixed wing and continue on with some crosswinds. Okay, now we are back in Aerosoft's Twin Otter, and I can't think of too many more aircraft out there that are more fun to battle crosswinds in tough flying conditions than this particular airplane. Loads of fun and highly recommended. Now, one of the things you're going to want to do once you first get your crosswinds is spend some time taxiing around your favorite airport. That's going to be the best thing you can do once you get started off to try to determine what preference is going to work best for you in terms of how stiff you want it to be, where you want your legs, the whole 9 yards. And one of the things you may find, especially if you don't have any actual airtime in a real aircraft, one of the things you'll find is that you're going to find a huge difference, and you might find that you're going to have to learn how to taxi all over again. So that's one of the great things about these rudder pedals, is they really can prepare you for the real thing in terms of getting you somewhat of an idea of what you can expect. Now we're going to depart off runway 24 here out to the west. The winds are going to be coming in directly out of the north, so we should battle some tough winds just before we get off the ground here. One of the things about Flight Simulator that it's a little bit annoying is how it handles crosswinds on the runway, taking off and landing. Just as you get your airspeed, sometimes I feel like it wants to blow you right off the runway a little bit worse than what real life might have an aircraft do. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start a little bit to the right of the center line, because I have a strong feeling that once we get up to speed here, it's going to try to blow me off into the bushes. So it should give me enough girth to have some pavement left to get off the ground. All right, let's go ahead and take off and do a quick pattern and see how it handles. It's starting to already blow me to the left there. Ooh, overcompensated there just a little bit. And there it goes. Full rudder. Oh, man. I can feel my leg getting tired already. Let's go ahead and rotate off before we hit those bushes. Yikes. So, as you can see, heavy winds there. A little bit of stability here. And we don't want to climb too high. I'm just going to go straight into the pattern here. And I'll take my feet off the pedals here for a moment. So as we come all the way around now, the wind's going to start to blow us a little bit closer to the airport. And there are also some thermals up here as well a little bit. So that's always additional fun. So it's kind of a constant battle here, just trying to keep the aircraft on course. So indeed, the first thing you're going to want to do is just taxi around the airport, and you'll find that just taxiing around is more fun, I think, than it's ever been, at least for me. I know there are a lot of people that don't start at the gate or start at the parking position. They prefer to start off on the runway and take off, and I don't know for the life of me who would want to do that, but I know that in many cases Flight Simulator will start you off on the runway. And if you are one of those types of people, Once you have these pedals, you're not going to want to fly that way anymore. You're definitely going to want to start at your departure gate or your parking position and taxi over to the active. You're going to find that it's going to be so much more fun just taxiing the aircraft around the airport or over to the active. All right, we're going to go ahead and bring her around now, straight into the headwind. Full flaps. Try to turn into the runway here. And there we are, right on the approach. Lower than I want to be here. There's that crosswind. You can see us pushing it. You can see the wind pushing us off a little bit. So we're going to counteract that now a little bit. Try to keep us on the center line. And we're down. Still wanting to push us off to the side here. Just going to try to counteract with the right toe brake a little bit. And it's still wanting to push us off to the side. I guess I should come completely off the power. Like, why aren't we slowing down? This wasn't all the way back. Okay, and there you have it. So a decent little crosswind approach. I myself, even throughout the course of reviewing these pedals, I'm still in the process of just trying to acclimate to them as well, just even with my own flying. So I didn't throw the heaviest thing that I could at it because I'm still just kind of getting used to at least my own settings. Again, if you want to have these things set up in the way that or a similar manner of which you're used to, whatever type of pedals you have, again, the great thing about these is you have the option to do that. You can make these things as close to whatever pedals you're using as you want because of all the customizable options. Now for me, I want this thing to be as stiff as possible. I want this to try to replicate moving hydraulics as much as I can. So because of that, I have my stiffness setting to really, really rough. So trying to do crosswinds and difficult approaches, I've almost kind of had to learn how to fly my simulator all over from scratch, just because the feeling now was so incredibly different that the aircraft no longer handles the way that I'm used to it handling. As far as the Twin Otter goes here, I've spent many, many hours in this aircraft, in this simulator, and I've gotten so accustomed to it that I've gotten comfortable. But with these pedals now, the difference that they add to the experience, it's almost as if now it's a completely different airplane. And it's more difficult to fly because of how much actual body movement and strength that I'm having to do in order to fly it. And of course, that's really what we want when it comes to simulator, is we want our aircraft to be as realistic as possible, but our interaction with the aircraft should be as realistic as possible as well. And so you'll find that when you get a yoke or a set of rudder pedals or a flight stick that's more conducive to the real thing, then you'll find that the way you fly is completely different. and you'll find that you'll have to change your techniques and what you're used to. And when you're flying something like Scitek rudder pedals that are just so easy to push, you know, something like I said, like taxiing around an airport is a completely different experience. When you go into something where you have a lot of stiffness just to stay on that center line, all of a sudden your flying experience has completely changed. So if it changes that much on the ground, just imagine how much it will change when you're in the air. And that's what makes these pedals so special. How much they will change your experience in terms of how they feel, but also all of the limitless things you can do to them. And another great thing about it is you can change your experience based on the aircraft. You can adjust your settings, the pedals, the sensitivities, not just in the software in the simulator, but physically on the rudder pedals themselves. And you can make all these adjustments based on whatever aircraft you feel like flying. And so that's what makes these things so great. It's going to be a different experience with each different setting, each different setup, each different aircraft you use. And that's why I say, as my final words reviewing these pedals, these are the best things ever to happen to hardware. They really are, because nothing is as customizable as something like this. Order your pair now. At some point down the line, new pedals, different styles of pedals will eventually come out, and you'll be able to then go even further with what you can do with these. So head over to the MFG Crosswinds website. Of course, it is embedded in the video on this page. Check them out. Get your order in. I guarantee you, you will not be disappointed. All right, it's been over an hour that you've spent your time with me. Waste no further minutes of your life and go out and enjoy the friendly digital skies. Take care, everyone. I am out of here. All right, time to go back and do some more flying.